It turns out that the hybrid work we thought was the massive once in a lifetime generational shift, but it turns out that that was the Hobbit to AI's Lord of the Rings. This is the massive, the big thing that is going to affect how we work and live and operate, and really present us with the opportunity to amplify ourselves.
This is Alistair, and welcome back to the Venture Variety Show. This is a podcast where I talk with founders, investors, and operators about how startups and the stories around them get built. Today's guest is Keegan Evans. Keegan is founder and CEO of the company called Euda. His background is unique. He spent his 20s flying helicopters in the Marine Corps, and then he shifted into tech and organizational work at companies like Intuit. Out of that experience, he founded Euda to help leaders navigate the challenges and changes shaping how we work. When we recorded this conversation, Keegan and I talked about how AI isn't just a tech problem, but a trust and a cultural problem. And he explained why leaders should think of AI as a teammate, not just as a tool. Since then, he told me his thinking has evolved into what he now calls the Euda Methodology. This is what he describes as a practical set of steps for helping organizations actually operationalize cultural change and get a ROI from AI adoption. So I think you'll find his perspective especially timely right now, given all the discussion lately about AI and the future of work. So let's dive in and meet Keegan Evans.
Good, Alistair. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
First of all, though, tell us who you are and how you came to found the company Euda.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent my 20s flying helicopters in the Marine Corps. I did 3 deployments to Iraq, and I learned a ton about high-pressure, high-performing organizations effectively working together as teams. And culture is the through line of that in my life. And I started working in tech. I worked across a number of, from startups to some Fortune 500, some familiar brand names, less familiar names, and learned about tech product development, program management, organizational culture development as well, and software and hardware and design thinking. And it all rolled up into one. And then at the end, in the middle of the pandemic, I was at Intuit, and I moved over from a chief of staff-like role into our people and places organization to look at the future of work. It was specifically called the Workplace and Workforce of the Future, a strategy team, because in 2021, we were figuring out what hybrid was. Everyone was figuring out what hybrid was. All we knew was hybrid was a word. And this was the big future of work. And I looked at this, and this felt like a generational shift in how we work. We were moving towards more enabled remote work, but the pandemic forced us into thinking about more flexible work and how we can do that. And I saw the opportunity to be really deliberate about the future of work, to be deliberate about cultures, to be deliberate about systems, but we have to help people along into that. And that role, I wound down off of that role, and it turns out that I don't know how nerdy your audience is, but I'm going to expose my credentials. It turns out that the hybrid work we thought was the massive once in a lifetime generational shift, but it turns out that that was the Hobbit to AI's Lord of the Rings. This is the massive, the big thing that is going to affect how we work and live and operate, and really present us with the opportunity to amplify ourselves. I founded Euda in between a couple of companies, between a startup and joining Intuit back in 2018, with the vision of just helping people be and work better. And so it all comes together now, and we're in 2025. Mm-hmm. And the big problem in front of us is AI. And I believe many of us are thinking of this as a tech problem, and I think it's a trust and a culture problem. And that's the huge opportunity right there.
So just to break it down,
yeah,
what does Euda provide?
So Euda provides coaching, consulting, and educational and organizational support for change management. We can help solve all sorts of problems, but every good consultant knows that you can't say, I can come in and help you solve everything, even if we can. So right now we are focusing very heavily on helping organizations who know that, and leaders know that there's a opportunity in AI, that they want to do something about AI, but they don't know where to start. And so we help you bring the AI hype to the human habit, and start with the workshop. If you just need to figure something out, we've got a great 90-minute workshop that helps bring the empathy for your team, the core principles that we have into how to operationalize that. Mm-hmm. And then we also provide the ongoing support, because culture change can't happen in just 90 minutes. It's a continuous effort. So we're that coaching, we're that guidance, we're that framework If, as Microsoft says, if AI brings intelligence on tap for everyone, we're the wisdom on tap to go along with it.
Remind me again, what branch of the service were you in?
I was a Marine.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. Thank you so much. And was that helicopter behind you? Was
It
that what you flew?
it is, yeah. I've got just about 2,000 hours in that thing, a couple hundred hours in various training aircraft, and then I had the fun privilege of transitioning and flying the Osprey, the V-22 tilt rotor, while I was in the reserves as well. But my heart is with the CH-46 above me.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, thank you for doing that. And I have lots of relatives who went through the service, so thank you.
Of course.
The opportunity here with Euda and the services you provide, who is it ideal for?
I think our ideal customers are those leaders and leadership teams are a real starting point. And we range really from seniors or late stage Series A companies that are starting to navigate that growth of the organization all the way up through Fortune 500 companies,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to AI adoption and AI ready team culture. Anything above a team of 15 or 20 is really going to be the sweet spot. And whether that's an entire company or whether that's an organization within. I'm doing 2 workshops next week, one for a nonprofit that's about 15 people, one for a senior leadership product team for a major media company that has, of course, global and thousands of people. But focusing on wherever that culture starts and wherever that curiosity is, I know we can do this better. And I don't want to just tell my people, just go do AI.
And that's a range of organizations and companies, and which is great because AI is being used by a range of small businesses and larger
Absolutely.
corporations and nonprofits and governments and on and on. And you kind of referenced it a moment ago when you said, you know, the AI situation, it's not a tech problem. What are people getting wrong? Is it that I guess I'm feeding you the line here, but I mean, what are people getting wrong about implementing AI?
Yeah, it's the right question to ask. What doesn't feel like it's
Mhm.
clicking when AI is out there? We're seeing it all over the news. We're seeing it across all spectrums of news. We see people talk about, hey, this is going to amplify our humanity, not replace us. We also hear all the scary parts about AI. Is it replacing it? It is replacing some jobs because it amplifies humans to be able to do more things. Where I think a lot of us start off getting it wrong is because we follow very natural adaptation. AI is a technology. Most technologies are tools. Most AI platforms tools are presented to us as tools. Hey, you can plug this in. And where we've adopted technology tools in the past is to bring it in and, hey, I know that, okay, this is what it's going to do. We learn how to do it. We take a training 30 years ago. If there was a printed out manual, now we've got all these other ways of learning it, and we plug it into the workflow, and then we as the people on the teams doing whatever job we're trying to do go about our day maybe a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more efficient. AI breaks that mold because AI amplifies and brings in the intelligence, and it brings in scale, and it brings in change that at the rate of change of AI is exceeding our human capacity to adapt to change. So trainings expire, and trainings expire before they're even scheduled, much less delivered. A lot of times, if you're training to a specific tool, and so that's where our first principle of for Euda for AI adoption, AI curiosity comes in, because training expires, but learning evolves. And so we want to bring in this, starting with the mindset of this curiosity. It's always going to be there. How do we encourage people to bake it into their lives? How do we make it part of our organizational culture that we continuously learn about the latest ways that AI can help amplify us, whether it's existing interfaces or tools that we're using or something new, and building that culture of experimentation, ultimately getting to the place where we like to say AI is a teammate, not a tool.
What does that mean, that AI is a teammate? Because we're seeing a lot of adoption with AI agents. Excuse
Yep,
me.
absolutely.
I talked with a lot of entrepreneurs about this, how they're running their business using AI agents for accounting and marketing and so on. So what does that mean to treat AI as a teammate?
A person we bring into our team has strengths and opportunities and gaps, and we don't always know exactly where those are. There's a process of onboarding, there's a process of learning, there's a process of continually learning and adopting. When we add new teammates, whether they're human or non-human intelligences, there's going to be we're going to have to reset. And that can feel a little bit scary, especially when our mindset is this technology is changing so fast. It's a tool. I can't add another adaptation, another mindset shift to what I'm already doing. But I actually think shifting our perspective to that AI is a teammate frees us up a lot because the technology is changing so fast. If it's a tool, we constantly have to learn new parts of what it can do, what it can't do, and that's changing. But when we think about AI as a teammate, we actually realize that we're not in the wilderness of terrifying new technology anymore because we've known for generations what good leadership looks like, what good high performing organizations look like, what good trust building looks like. And it can be a little weird to think of a non-human intelligence in that framework, but the frameworks work, whether it's our goals, roles, process, interpersonal relationship of how to address organizational dynamics, or whether it's the lessons that I bring in from aviation and the military around our leadership principles and our crew resource management principles from aviation, which I teach and apply. These are all things that we have the tools available. We have the mindsets and the frameworks available that if we just think about how we're interacting with AI, and this only gets more important with agents, as you brought up, in those ways, then we have a little more tolerance, we have patience, and we can find the ways that they fit in to the team even better.
It's amazing. Listening to you talk, I was wondering, are humans ready? And I know you're not, an anthropologist or, although you do study philosophy, I know that about you.
I
But
do.
are humans ready? Is there just too much fear and confusion and job insecurity? Are humans ready to treat AI as a teammate?
Some yes, some no.
Mm,
There's 7 billion of us, so yeah,
yeah.
I feel safe couching my answer that way.
Good point.
However,
That's true.
it's here and it's coming and it's changing faster. And there's some wonderful people thinking about this and across all the spectrums. And I think the diversity of thought that we're looking for is really great to have. You've
Mhm.
got Reid Hoffman with his frameworks and super agency with the four points of view that work better on the page, but I'm going to try to clear them out verbally. Your gloomers, your doomers, your zoomers, and your boomers. Sorry, bloomers,
Okay.
not boomers.
Well, you might
um,
have to say that again.
I do. Yeah, exactly. It looks better on the page. I'm actually going to move past, but how people think about it, AI is going to destroy us all. AI
Right,
shouldn't be
right,
regulated, and then the spots in the middle.
right.
We think about it in there's the chance to amplify humanity, and there's a chance to really, and that does cause us to need to look at what does it actually mean to be human. Microsoft CEOs talked about needing to separate out the definition of knowledge work and the knowledge worker. The knowledge worker is still going to be valuable, but many things we think of as knowledge work, AI can do better. But is it really a core part of our humanity to manually review all of our emails every day and
Mhm.
take up that time and that executive function? And so I think that we are ready, but we are as ready as for this as we are for any change that requires a deep level of introspection and reflection and curiosity and frankly vulnerability because this is different. And because the pace of change of this technology is so fast, as I said earlier, it's outstripping our human capacity to adapt to change. We are ready in the those who are ready are the ones who the most ready and will adapt the most successfully going to be the ones who adapted the way that humans have always adapted to change the best together. And that's why I'm focusing on organizational cultures and the collective work together to create and tackle this. We don't have to always be at the very front bleeding edge of AI technology, but understanding it and existing in the wave and doing so in groups together is how we're going to succeed.
I have to ask, and there's no right or wrong answer. When using generative AI and you're putting in prompts, do you write out please and thank you?
Absolutely, because I'm always hedging my bet.
Yeah.
In the AGI future, I want them to remember that I was a polite person.
Keegan always said please when he
Yeah.
asked
Yeah.
for a prompt.
There have actually been some really fascinating looks because of how the generative AI works.
Mhm.
There is a real cue to it that
Mm.
talking to it politely reinforces the responses to actually be more collaborative and more supportive. And so it may not have the exact same emotional mapping that we have in terms of etiquette, but it does have an impact. And so, yeah, there's the not serious answer, and then there's the serious answer for you.
Yeah. That's fine, and you're free to have that answer. I've talked to both. I've
Of
talked to
course,
people on both camps, and personally, I'm still reevaluating my stance. But taking a look at what you see with the leaders that you're talking to of
Yeah.
organizations and businesses, what are people getting right and wrong when it comes to AI and using it and implementing it?
Yeah. People are getting right a lot of things. And a lot of that starts with just using it. One of the greatest simplifications I have around any of my core principles, which I try to simplify pretty well, is just use it. Just use it daily. Daily AI use, we already see that those who use AI daily in some capacity report 87% greater productivity gains. It's a habit, building that. And in that habit and we discovered new ways to use it. And so as we learn its capabilities, just like getting to know someone that you're onboarding, a new intern you've onboarded to the team, then, oh, hey, this Claude is good at this, or ChatGPT is strong at this, but I didn't really like how it answered that.
Mhm.
There's too many M dashes. Hopefully I
Mhm.
don't trigger anyone with that particular
I don't like
observation.
the M dash. That I remain strong on. So you're in good company. Go ahead.
And so having the patience of just progressively using it, committing to using it in some way, and then being open to learning and being
Uh-huh.
surprised. Where leaders especially, I think, are getting it wrong is stopping there and saying,
Mm.
just go use AI. Just do it. Just get out there and do it without providing the additional scaffolding, without providing the additional insights. I mentioned earlier, I worked on the future of work team at Intuit, and we looked at hybrid work. And we started with the premise of there is such an open opportunity here. People want flexibility in what we're doing. That's the number one advantage we're going to get out of this. Let's just create an open sandbox and let teams experiment
Mhm.
and play on their own. And that worked for some folks in some ways. But what we also saw was that there was a pleading, a begging for just tell us what to do. We need to understand that. And there's a lot of factors that went into that. One, we were all in this global pandemic, which is a collective trauma and causing so much constant change and uncertainty. The rules had been changing. There'd been rules about what we could do and not do, including even walking through an office door. In that constant change of structure and rules, just saying, oh, yeah, just figure it out. You got the freedom, just figure it out, actually paralyzes people in trying to adopt something new.
Mm.
I'm seeing the same things in AI adoption. Oh, hey, it's great. It's wonderful. We'll amplify everything. Just go figure it out. But there's even setting aside we're not recovered from the collective trauma of COVID or any of those things by any means. But even setting that aside, the massive pace of change, the massive pace of uncertainty, and so much so the exact same thing of, am I cheating? Am I using it wrong? Am I going to get in trouble for how I'm using it? Can paralyze people. And so leaders' responsibility is to actually help bring the frameworks, bring the clarity where we can't bring certainty, we bring clarity around what can and can't do. And so we teach leaders to look at things in terms of, I steal a framework from my aviation days. In our manuals, we have very clear definitions for shall, should, and may. And there are some things that are going to be really high stakes in your organization and the work you're doing. And you're going to want to have shall statements around that. Shall not use customer financial data and have AI process it and publish it publicly. Like that kind of thing, to be that clear. Should, gray areas. Hey, let's have a conversation about it. But there's probably some room. May, wide open areas for experimentation. Building those kind of frameworks and structures for your teams is a really powerful way
Mm.
to overcome what people, your original question was, what are people getting wrong? Leaving it too wide open because people are scared. And there's some justifiable fear about worrying about jobs, worrying about getting in trouble for doing things wrong, worried about, it's once a week we see an article about a law firm or Anthropic themselves generating something with AI that went into a
Right.
public filing and it didn't get checked. And so that brings me to my third core principle, which I call amplification without abdication. Amplifying our humanity without abdicating our responsibilities to what we're doing. AI is our co-pilot, not our autopilot. We're part of the team. Yes.
It's amazing to me too, because if it wasn't for the pandemic and the work from home growth that we've seen, and now kind of the hybrid approach that we're seeing more of. I, I was trying to imagine, gosh, what would AI adoption look like?
Yeah.
If we were all still, in an office 40 hours a week. Maybe we would feel more dystopian about the changes. It's almost like, thank goodness that we have this. I don't know,
Yeah.
these confluence of changes that have happened in the last few years. It seems to, am I wrong? It seems to like help support the maybe the adoption that we're going through of AI.
Yeah. I think you're definitely onto something. I think there's a chain of events that have prepared our minds. Certainly, I mean, as an N of one, I certainly my path has absolutely helped me understand this change and see these. Hey, this is not a completely scary unknown wilderness. Like I said, there's paths here. Where are these? And then I get really excited because I really enjoy wrestling with these problems. There's also the counter argument that if we were all still more in a come into the office 5 days a week, we would have the more natural human reinforced, systemically reinforced connections that can help us stay in this together.
Mm.
But it's not like we didn't have problems with work. We weren't. It's with how we led and work and worked and organized before. And one of the things that I think the pandemic and moving to work for knowledge work, working virtually so much, and then the navigating the move to flexible work during and post really exposed what are the things, where were we using the crutch of everyone has to be here as leaders and managers? Where were we falling back on these things that were able to conceal less effective leadership and less effective management techniques, and put a spotlight on, hey, we really need to engage and think deliberately about our culture and what that means. And sometimes it means we want to be part of a culture that's always in person, always together. Sometimes we can navigate other things, but the tools around navigating a culture in a blended environment and being intentional and deliberate about that absolutely translate really well and prepared us, I think, for those who take advantage of it. Yeah.
Looking ahead, what does the workplace, what does workplace culture look like to you in the years ahead? How are things going to change, and how are we going to adapt?
Yeah.
What's your vision?
So the future of work continues to be evolving, and I've got a long history of making really specific predictions and immediately being proven proven
Oh,
wrongs. But I feel pretty solid about things that I'm reading in Microsoft's got the Future Work Index, or of course I'm misquoting it right now, but within the last 2 months they released a work index report, and they talk about, especially with agentic and agents coming out, the future is uh, every individual person is empowered uh, with these super intelligences that can do things at scale, at knowledge. I referenced the phrase "intelligence on tap." That comes from that report. We can buy the expertise, we can buy it, and we can democratize that. Everyone will have access to that. What that means, though, is that we will be managing these teams of agents, these capabilities will have all of this other at our fingertips. And so the skills are going to shift for what really effective knowledge work can be. Normally, younger generations are better early adopters.
right,
Technology. That was
right,
true.
sure.
I can remember in my own life, I was a better early adopter of technology in my 20s. I'm still I'm still pretty, but I'm not bleeding edge early adopter. With AI, we were actually seeing the reverse. Older generations were more successful.
Mm.
And the hypothesis around that was because some of the core skills that are useful for that are wisdom, judgment, and delegation. And those are things that we learn over time that those in leadership roles have. But those are very much, if not teachable, they're very much learnable
Mm.
for a lot of folks. And that's going to be where we can start from AI first organizations of thinking of how am I amplifying all the boring, automated, repetitive parts? How am I able to figure out what I need to do and then get one of the agents or one of the coordinators of agents to go take care of that while I'm bringing in the really important human stuff. What is the really important human stuff? Decision making, creativity, insight, wisdom, those pieces. How do we build that out? And so I think the future that I want of work is smaller teams, but a lot more of them because we're a lot more enabled to be more individually democratized. We were talking a little bit in the pre-show about why did I name my company Euda, and it's based off of the Greek philosophy eudaimonia, and I love how Aristotle took a stab at it, that achieving the good life, eudaimonia, is to contribute the most to society, and we all have our individual strengths and passions. Intersecting those things together, perfecting them. If everyone does that because of the distribution, society is bettered. I think the future of work is AI enables society to be better because more people are able to do more things that really align with their core skills, passions, and talents at scale. And it's not a zero sum game in my mind.
I'll have to come back to you in 6 months or a year and see how our predictions are going. For the time being, hey, what's that?
I would love that. Absolutely.
Okay. Let's put it on our calendars. Keegan, that was Keegan Evans from Euda. I really liked how he framed AI adoption not as a tool to bolt on, but as a teammate you have to onboard, manage, and build trust with. His point that leaders need to provide clarity, not just the freedom to act, really resonated with me. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe to the Venture Variety Show on Substack and YouTube, and share this episode with someone you think would find it useful. That will help me grow the show, and it means a lot to me. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.